Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts about the 40K universe. I am your host Gershwin and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Space Marines as we get into the lore of the Dark Angels. Now this was a viewer request, so if you guys have any requests for videos that you guys would like to see on Space Marine Legions from the first founding, please comment down below. Don't forget to put suggestion followed by that first founding Legion. Now because this is the first video for this chapter, we're going to get into a little bit about the Primarch. But if you want more information on the Primarch of Lionel Johnson, please check out our 40 Facts specifically on him. So let's get into 40 Facts about the Dark Angels. The Dark Angels are considered amongst the most powerful and secretive of the Loyalist Space Marine chapters. They were the first legion of the original 20 Space Marine legions. They were created during the first founding of the 30th millennium. They claim complete allegiance and service to the Emperor of Mankind. Their actions and secret goals, at times, seem to be at odds with that professed loyalty. The Dark Angels were the first of the Emperor's Space Marine legions, and in the earliest incarnations, fought as the personal army of the Master of Humanity. In the dawning years of the Great Crusade, and in the shadowed campaigns that preceded it. As a prototype of what were to become the Legiones Astartes, they served both as a template for the more specialized legions that were to come after them, and a standard by which these successors would be measured. Once the most numerous and powerful of the Space Marine legions, their numbers would be depleted by decades of savage warfare, particularly in the War of the Rangdan Genocide, one of the most apocalyptic campaigns of the Great Crusade. The scars of these battles would change them, as would the reunification with their Primarch, Lionel Johnson, and the introduction of fresh blood from his adopted world of Caliban, a death world dominated by warlike feudal society of techno-barbarians. Caliban's warrior orders provided fertile ground for the Legion's regeneration, and its martial codes and practices were extensively incorporated and adopted by the rebuilding Legion. Caliban was a planet of immense forests, inhabited by terrible, monstrous beasts, mutated by the touch of chaos in the centuries after the birth of the chaos god Slanesh. Due to the planet's proximity to the nearby Eye of Terror, these monsters were numerous. Johnson managed to survive in the forests alone, living as a wild man, far from civilization. Caliban was home to many knightly orders of warrior aristocrats, created to defend its people and the massive fortress monasteries they lived within, from the great beasts that lurked in the forest. These knights maintained a few aspects of Caliban's ancient technology from before the Age of Strife, and wielded primitive bolter pistols and wore suits of simple power armor, very similar to that later used by the Astartes that were handed down from knight to knight. Despite these technological trappings, Caliban remained very much a pre-industrial society whose warriors rode to war on horseback. One of the most prominent knightly organizations was known simply as the Order, and was made up of commoners and nobles alike, whereas the other knightly orders were drawn by tradition only from the Calibanite nobility. A group of the Order's knights on patrol in the forests discovered the Pharaoh Primarch in the forest. When the knight seemed inclined to kill him, one man, a well-respected knight named Luther, stayed his hand and decided to take the Primarch into the Order. Luther named the Pharaoh boy Lionel Johnson, which means the lion son of the forest in the Calibanite dialect of Low Gothic. L. Johnson was taken to the Order's fortress monastery and taught human ways. The lion learned to speak incredibly quickly and soon mastered all the necessary aspects of Calibanite culture, faster than anyone ever had, including Luther, his mentor, foster father, and best friend, believed possible. With Luther at his side, L. Johnson ultimately rose into the highest rank of the Order. At the height of his reputation, L. Johnson made clear his extraordinary ambition. He called for a grand crusade to exterminate the great beasts of Caliban, so that the people of his world could finally know peace and live free from the fear. This was received with great enthusiasm by the other members of the Order, and even the other knightly orders. But it proved to be a time-consuming process that took nearly a decade of constant warfare against the terrible dangers of the deep forest. The word of their success brought an influx of new recruits into the Order as the campaign progressed. Any Calibanite knightly order that did not follow Johnson's lead, such as the Knights of Lupus of the Northern Forests, which feared that the destruction of the great beasts would upend Calibanite's traditional social order, were destroyed to the last man. After the last of the great beasts fell, Johnson was named Supreme Grand Master of the Order and was recognized as the rightful ruler of all Caliban. It seemed that the world was ready to enter a new golden age of peace and prosperity that the Lion had promised. Shortly after the success of the campaign, the Emperor of Mankind and his Astartes scouts arrived on Caliban, after they detected the psychic emanation of one of the Primarchs. From the moment the Emperor landed, L. Johnson felt a deep connection between himself and the Master of Mankind, and swore his fealty. In return, the Emperor made the Lion the commander of the First Legion of Space Marines that had been created from his genome. The Emperor had first sent emissaries from the First Legion, who had been created from the genome of their lost Primarch, Lionel Johnson. The Imperials brought with them all of the advanced technology that had been hailed by the people of Caliban as miraculous. Soon the Astartes of the First Legion were putting potential Astarte aspirants from the Order and the other knightly organizations through a myriad of martial trials and competitions to gauge their level of martial prowess and character. Only the strongest and most dedicated were allowed to pass the next stage. Many within the Order whispered that they were competing for a place within the rank of the Astartes, but these trials also served as a secondary purpose of determining if the human strain on Caliban was genetically pure enough to warrant its status as the world of which the First Legion would recruit from. While the Calibanite knightly orders reveled in their differences and often resorted to combat to settle their feuds, the Astarte legions were united in purpose and will. Such divisions could not be tolerated, and at the behest of Lion and the Astartes, the individual knightly orders were disbanded and brought under the control of the First Legion. Such a drastic move did not happen overnight, and could not pass without dissenting voices. But when the Lion spoke in favor of the Union of Knights and the glory that would be theirs for the taking in the service of the Emperor, most such voices were stilled. Most, but not all. The Emperor himself finally came to Caliban on a day that would live on for centuries in Calibanite legend. His great vessel descended from the heavens, and he welcomed his lost son back into the fold. The event was slightly marred by an attempt against the Emperor's life made by certain conservative knights of the Order who feared the changes that would be brought to their world by the Imperium and its advanced science and culture. But these malcontents were swiftly and mercilessly executed as traitors by the Astartes. More objections were raised when the soldiers of the Imperial army descended to the surface of Caliban. The First Legion's aspirant trials had already identified the likely candidates of recruitment into the august body, but the vast majority of the planet's population would still be able to serve the Emperor as troops of the Imperial Navy. Within an unimaginably short period of time, the surface of Caliban was transformed from a world of sprawling wilderness and castles to one of martial industry that rang to the beat of factory hammers and the trample of booted feet as its populace marched itself into interstellar war. The Emperor's servants had descended to Caliban with enormous earth-moving machines that cleared dozens of kilometers of forest a day and left flat, lifeless soil in their wake, ready to be planted or built upon. Mines and refineries and manufactorums followed, ready to transform the planet's abundant resources into vital war materials for the Emperor's crusade. Cities were built to supply the sprawling industrial sites, growing upward and outward with each passing year as the traditional villages and towns surrounding the fortress monasteries were emptied and their citizens relocated to better serve the Imperium. Finally, the day arrived when those individuals whose courage had been proven beyond doubt, whose stamina, endurance, and strength had seen them through the Astarte trials, they were ready to be added to the ranks of the First Legion. Word had come from Luther that the Astartes had made their final selection for advanced training and the geo-enhancement required to join their ranks. Through the application of imperial science and marvels of gene seeds, these aspirants were transformed over the next several years into battle brothers of the First Legion, newly renamed the Dark Angels by the Lion after an ancient Calibanite fable. Luther had been chosen to join the First Legion by the Astartes, but in common with a large proportion of the initial intakes from the Order and the other Calibanite knightly orders, he had been too old to benefit from the implantation of gene seeds. In its place, Luther and others like him had undergone an extensive series of genetic, surgical, and biochemical enhancement procedures designed to increase their stamina, strength, and reflexes to superhuman levels. They were taller, stronger, and quicker than mortal men, but for all that they were still not true Astartes. It was difficult for Luther and the others to come to terms with this fact, knowing that they were surrounded by those who had once served under them as squires and junior knights, but were now far more powerful than they could even ever hope to become. Luther still served as the Lion's second within the Legion, earning his position based on merit, and fueled with a desire to prove himself by this devotion to the imperial ideal. But despite his success, he could not escape his own inner conviction that he was somehow being looked down upon because he was not a full Astarte. Lionel Johnson took command of the Dark Angels Legion that had been created from his genetic stock, and he was granted command of the 4th Expeditionary Fleet of the Great Crusade. One of Lionel Johnson's earliest campaigns as a commander of the newly dubbed Dark Angels Legion was the compliance of the newly discovered knightly world of Molech. This was a massive joint compliance operation between multiple legions, including the Dark Angels, Luna Wolves, Emperor's Children, White Scars, and thousands of Imperialis Auxilia soldiers, and various Mechanicum and Legal Titanicus assets. Cyprian Divine of House Divine was named planetary governor of Molech after it was conquered. In the presence of several of his Primarch sons, the Emperor led them to a war portal hidden underground, where he proceeded to utilize it to enter into the realm of chaos to parley with the ruinous powers. When he finally returned, the Emperor appeared aged, but was more powerful. He then suppressed his son's memories of Molech and stationed a large garrison force comprised of nearly 100 Imperialix Auxilia regiments, 3 Legal Titanicus cohorts, along with a detachment from 2 Space Marine legions to protect the secrets of the warp portal on Molech. Next, the Dark Angels took part in a vital campaign known as Rangdan Genocides. They fought alongside Titans from the Legal Grynoconicus, Legal Vorcorum, and Legal Kydonus, as well as other Zenith Mechanicum forces from the Forge World of Zan II. The Dark Angels hurled themselves at their enemies and broke their great strength in countless battles against the vile Xenos on the edge of the Halo stars. This campaign culminated in the 3rd Rangdan Genocide around the 890th year of the 30th millennium, which resulted in the loss of the lives of 50,000 Dark Angel Space Marines, spent in preventing the destruction of perhaps the entire Northern Imperium by the menace from the Outer Darkness. Due to these extensive losses suffered by the First Legion, the Ultramarines Legions were now becoming the largest Space Marine Legion, standing at around 166,000 Legionnaires. And those were 40 facts about the Dark Angels. Now this is just the beginning. We're going to continue talking about the Great Crusade and what the Dark Angels, along with their Legion, accomplished during the Great Crusade, and then we're going to get into more specific facts about the Legion. So subscribe to the channel to get those. If you guys have more suggestions for first founding videos, please comment down below. So if you have any requests, just put suggestion followed by the first founding Legion that you guys want us to create a video for. And at the same time, comment down below on any questions about the Dark Knights, I guess, and then I'll try my best to answer them in the videos to come. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. By you guys liking and commenting, you're telling YouTube you want more of that content, and you're going to start seeing that in your recommended feed, and you're going to see cool videos from us and other Warhammer 40K creators, because it's all based on what you like. So help YouTube find out what you like by liking, commenting, and sharing. Well, the sharing part is really just for us, because you love us. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate, signing out.